What's up and welcome or welcome back. Today I'm diving into a bit of a rant about some social norms I've decided to just drop, like cut out entirely. Maybe you'll relate, and if you're Gen X like me, I think you'll get where I'm coming from on this stuff. One big thing, we don't want our parents' stuff. I'll get into that a little bit later, but first let's start with some of the smaller norms I'm flipping the script on these days. First up is working for myself and not placing much value on a college diploma. Yeah, I said it. Look, I'm not saying education isn't important, but I think the whole go to college, get a degree, then work a 9 to 5 for 40 years plan is outdated. And it's depressing as hell, to be honest. I didn't need a framed diploma to start working for myself, and I know lots of people younger than me that are in the same boat, and I'm doing just fine. In fact, I think many of us Gen Xers are realizing that the secure job model our parents push doesn't really fit the world we live in anymore. I'd legit rather have the freedom to build something on my own terms than be stuck climbing some corporate ladder making someone else rich. Another norm I'm totally over is the idea that just because I'm in my 40s, I need to start playing it extra safe with my investments. The advice to switch to bonds or mutual funds or whatever super secure guaranteed income just doesn't make sense to me. There's barely any potential for returns with those, and especially with inflation eating everything away. I'm not interested in settling for small gains that won't move the needle. My money is staying in stocks because I've got bigger dreams than settling for 2 or 3% returns. I'm still going after growth, not just coasting into retirement. And here's a prime example. My mom was convinced by her bank to lock up $80K for about a year and a half, only to make $750 after they took out their fees. The only ones making any real money with that investment were the bank, not her. What's the point of that? I'd rather keep my money working harder for me in the market than handing it over to get such a terrible return on it. And hey, I'm not saying I'm a financial expert by any means, and this is not financial advice, but I managed my own investments for a long time, and I'll keep doing what works for me. The norm that you have to shift to safe investments just because you're getting older, doesn't work for me. Another thing I stopped caring about completely is fashion trends, for better or worse. Look, I gotta be comfortable. If I find something that fits, feels good, and works for my day-to-day life, I'm sticking with it. I'm not here to impress anybody by keeping up with the latest styles. And hey, I'm not trying to look like a deadbeat or anything, but I just bought another 3-pack of plain black t-shirts again. And yeah, I wear the same 3 pairs of shorts over and over. They're comfortable and I like my pockets. I know cargo shorts are supposedly out of style, but you know what? I like pockets, and if I can't button a pocket shut, I'm absolutely gonna lose my phone or some cash for sure. So I'm just doing my own thing when it comes to style or whatever, and that's good enough for me. Now let's talk about something I know a lot of us Gen Xers are facing: our parents' stuff. I get it. Baby boomers, you collected things, you saved things. You had the good china, the fancy silverware, the knickknacks, the furniture, all that stuff they thought would have value for generations to come. Totally get it. But let's be real here. We don't want it. Your kids do not want it. It's just stuff. We do not need it. And most of the time, it's a burden, especially since we're trying to travel lighter and live a little more minimalistically, if that's even a word, to a degree. My mom still has this 3-piece wall unit that screams 80s, brown with gold plastic trim. And my mother-in-law, she had a whole chest of photo albums. We actually convinced her to bring them over and toss them in our fire pit. She did, and after she even said she felt a bit lighter from purging some of that stuff. The message here is simple. Just please get rid of it. Don't leave it behind for us to sort through, because most of it is just junk. We'd rather have the space and the freedom than piles of things we didn't ask for. So no offense, but please don't think you're saving that for us. Next, let's talk about nationalism. Look, I get being proud of where you're from, but as soon as you see your country as better than or superior to another, you really need to give your head a shake and go get traveling. I'm from Ontario, Canada, born in Montreal, Quebec, and while there's a lot to love, I'm not blind to the problems there. The self-serving conservative provincial government has decimated our healthcare and education systems. And if we don't have a reliable healthcare system anymore, why would I want to stay in one of the most expensive provinces in one of the most expensive countries on the planet? It's not all sunshine and maple syrup, that's for sure. There's just so many benefits to living in other countries, especially when it comes to your health. We've been living in Belize for just over a year now, and I've seen firsthand how much healthier life outside of Canada can be. I lost over 30 pounds in the first 6 months here just from walking instead of driving everywhere, and eating food that wasn't coated in chemicals to survive weeks on a truck to get to a grocery store, then maybe another week or 2 on a grocery store shelf, then another week or 2 on our counter or fridge at home. Night and day difference when you're eating fresh, natural food, living a simpler, more active lifestyle. I'm not saying one place is perfect, but this idea that where you're from is automatically best, it just doesn't make sense. There's a whole world out there to explore, and plenty of countries offer a better quality of life, especially when it comes to health. Nationalism to me is just a distraction from seeing a bigger picture. Another thing that I've cut out of my life that's made me way happier, I stopped watching the news. Seriously, the constant cycle of negative political BS and hate and fear mongering, it's exhausting. It's totally draining. It's like every time I turned on the TV or checked my phone, there was another disaster, another scandal, or another reason to be angry at the world or the other side. Felt like the whole world was falling apart and I was carrying around this weight with me every single day. And for what? None of it was adding any value to my life. It's nothing that I could impact directly, and it was just dragging me down. So I just stopped. No more news, no more toxic media, no more getting sucked into the latest whatever catastrophe or outrage of the day. I realized that constantly feeding my mind with all that negativity wasn't doing me or anybody else around me any good. In fact, it was messing with my mood, my mindset, and even how I looked at the world. It's like the media was designed to keep us in a perpetual state of fear, anger, and anxiety or something, right? They thrive on it, but you don't have to play that game. And guess what? I've been so much happier since I made the decision to cut it out. I'm not living in total ignorance or anything, and I stay informed on the things that truly matter to me, but I'm no longer letting all that noise invade my day-to-day life. I've chosen to be intentional about what I let into my mind, and it's made a massive difference. It's amazing what happens when you're not constantly absorbing all that doom and gloom, right? Now I have more mental space for things that actually make a positive impact on my life. I'm more focused, less stressed, and more at peace. The world isn't even close to as dark as the news would have you believe. When you turn off that constant feed of negativity, you start seeing the good that's out there, the opportunities, the beauty, and the possibilities. You feel lighter, and trust me, it's so worth it. The same goes for toxic people. I've cut a lot of that negativity out of my life too. People are always complaining, blaming the economy, politics, even COVID for their lack of progress 5 years later. Just yesterday, I was talking to a guy who was still angry about having to wear a mask 4 years ago. I just don't need that energy around me anymore. Surrounding yourself with people who are always dragging you down with their pessimism or excuses can be just as draining as watching the news. And sometimes those people can be family. So I made a choice to distance myself from that, and it's been one of the best decisions for my mental health. As fluffy as it sounds, you got to protect your energy. And sometimes that just means cutting ties with people who aren't adding anything positive to your life. And yes, sometimes that even means family. So I guess the big takeaway is get out of your bubble. Whether that means rethinking what you value, questioning the norms we've been fed, or even stepping outside of the place you've always lived. There's a whole world out there. We're often told to stick to what we know, follow the same paths as everyone else, but what happens when you step outside of that? What happens when you let go of all that noise, all the expectations and negativity? Life opens up in a way you didn't expect was even possible. Trust me on this. Maybe for you, it's about questioning what you're really working toward. Is it what you want? Or is it what you think you're supposed to want? Maybe it's just about purging that physical stuff that's been weighing you down. And I tell you, after moving a few times and getting, stuff gone, it felt so much better and lighter. Or maybe it's about finally tuning out all that negativity and fear that the media and certain people dump on you over and over again. The news cycle and toxic people are designed to keep us anxious, angry, and divided. When you turn off that noise and you start living in your own reality instead of the one they're constantly selling, life feels lighter. And sometimes getting out of your bubble literally means getting out, traveling, exploring new places, living in a way that feels true to you. We've been living in Belize now for just over a year, and while it's not without its challenges, like reliable internet can be hit or miss, and hurricane season was definitely a new experience and an eye-opener, it still beats 6 months of wet gray skies in Ontario. I'm healthier, I'm happier, I'm more connected to the things that actually matter. And worst case, you'll at least walk away with a new perspective. You'll appreciate what really matters and how good you've actually had it when you see how others in different places struggle in ways you might not even have thought about. Trust me when I say it can be humbling, and it will remind you not to take the things you do have for granted. You don't have to move to another country or anything, but breaking out of your comfort zone in any way can be the first step towards living a freer and more intentional life. So whatever that looks like for you, I encourage you to break away from the norms that don't serve you anymore. Get rid of what's holding you down, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and see what's possible when you start living for yourself. Thank you so much if you've even watched this far. Please give me a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.